In 1859, the first of these appeared. This class has a few names, but it's best known as the Lady of the Lakes class, or the Problem class. This was the second design of John Ramsbottom, a fairly normal express passenger engine. It had one pair of 7-foot 6-inch driving wheels, as more wheels would have meant coupling rods. Coupling rods at the time were frowned upon, as it was believed they caused friction and that they were fragile. As built, they had open cabs, which must have been exceptionally uncomfortable because these engines were intended to run fast, at least in theory. These aren't super revolutionary engines, but they had the first use, at least in the UK, of Gifford's steam injector, and the first use of water scoops. The first engine was named Problem, which became one of the names the class as a whole would be referred to. They'd spend much of their early life working local express trains. At this time, it was common for the London North Western's fast trains to run at low speeds of around 45 miles an hour, so their speed wouldn't be put to the test in regular service. In later years, however, speeds would increase, and these Problem class engines would be used as pilots or for double-heading heavier, faster trains, finally putting them to work. During a political scare which involved the threat of war, one of these engines would run a 130.5-mile stretch without stopping thanks to water troughs. Despite rough weather, it would average 54.3 miles an hour. Here's why that's a bit impressive. At this time, hitting 80 miles an hour was crazy. The Problem class had only one pair of driving wheels and thus fairly poor adhesion. Large drivers as well, meaning wheel slip was more likely, and in the rain, making it even harder not to slip. On a 130-mile stretch of rail, there's bound to be some serious hills. Sure, the train it pulled was light. Even still, that's impressive for 1862. Even more so when you consider the normal running speeds at this time were around 40 miles an hour. They had a boiler pressure of just 120 psi. To average 50 miles an hour, it would have had to go well over that at some point to make up for the slowest bits of the run. That is a lot of steam to keep up that pace. The water scoops would later be shown off at the 1862 World Exhibition, and the engine that was shown off there, Lady of the Lake, was given a bronze medal. In 1871, Francis Webb took over as CME. In 1873, he rebuilt the entire class. They got cab roofs and new chimneys. Between 1879 and 1883, he gave them new boilers and steam brakes. Mildly scary side note, before this, only the tender had brakes. Made of wood, of course. Again, between 1895 to 1897, the class were given bigger boilers and larger fireboxes. New smokebox doors, thicker tires, and of course, some structural improvement to the frames to cope with the large boilers. In this form, they'd be used to pilot express trains, breaking 80 miles an hour. They were already old though, and their days were numbered no matter how much rebuilding you did. In 1904, Whale's precursors arrived on the scene. Stronger, faster, sturdier machines. Whale considered the Lady of the Lakes class to be underpowered, and sent them for scrap, as the precursors were being built. By 1907, they were all gone, alongside Webb's compounds. The longest working life of any of the Problems class was number 33 Erebus, with 47 years in service. Despite the occasionally unstable nature of the 222 wheel arrangement, the only serious accident that the Problem class was involved with wasn't its own fault. It ran into a runaway goods train that killed 33 people. This was, at the time, the worst rail disaster in the UK, and may have been less severe if the class had steam brakes. Sure, they weren't revolutionary, but they were a step up, and I'd argue possibly the natural conclusion of the 222. A few things tried on these engines were fairly unique at the time. These are really cute little engines with a proud sort of look to them, and I suppose they would be, remaining express engines to the end of their days. They were built in green, but their final black livery is just beautiful. I'd love to see a new build one of these, but I'm not sure it'd be practical from a preservation perspective. Then again, there's a Bloomer being built, and I'm sure that will fill the void nicely. Thanks for watching. If you have any suggestions for engines to cover, go ahead and drop it in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all that YouTuber engagement stuff. I'll see y'all next week.